I'm here at the University of Southern California today, where my friend America Ferrera went to school. After being cast in Real Women Have Curves, America's career skyrocketed, and then she landed the starring role in Ugly Betty. In the role of Betty Suarez, America won every major acting award. And now she's producing, starring in, and directing Superstore. She has also worked as an activist, fighting for immigrants' rights, women's rights, and numerous other causes.
We will not go from being a nation of immigrants to a nation of ignorance.
The way she uses her voice to amplify important issues is so inspiring to me.
Hi, babe. Good to see you. Oh my gosh, this is so great. I was so excited to come down here.
Have you ever been on this campus?
Well, I made a movie here once.
Oh, did you shoot parts of Legally Blonde?
Yes!
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I should spoil it for anybody. We were not at Harvard.
You were
we
not
were
at
in
Harvard.
Southern California.
One of my sisters came to USC, and I remember dropping her off and just like falling in love.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I remember at college I had a hot pot and I made, this is so gross, but I made like ramen noodles and then like an hour later made hot chocolate that kind of vaguely still tasted like ramen noodles. Yes.
That's classy. Wait, where did you go to college?
I went to Stanford.
Oh,
But I
wow.
didn't graduate, and so every time I come back on a college campus, I'm always like, oh, I should go back. It would be so fun.
You know, it is so fun. I had to leave college right towards the end. I was like a year from graduating, and
really?
And Ugly Betty came up. I had to take a leave of absence, and I did. And 6 years later, when I was 29 and Betty was done, I came back to school.
No, you didn't.
I did,
Is that
and it
right?
was amazing.
And so people always say, well, you know, school's wasted on the youth. And did you feel that way?
100%. Like, I couldn't help but look at the 17-year-olds around me and say, like, this is really important stuff. Like, you need to know this. It's not just a GE. It, like, really pertains to you. But
Did they listen to you?
No, but then you're, like, the almost 30-year-old in class telling
Aren't
kids,
they like, aren't you the lady from Ugly Betty?
Yeah. And then I graduated.
Wow. And what was your degree?
In international relations.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so inspired by you. I used to watch every speech you ever gave, and I'm so moved by just how much you care. It comes through in your words, your empathy, but it sounds like it was part of your life experience of seeing people, not just having people see you, but seeing other people.
Yeah, and I do think that started in my childhood. You know, I think when you grow up watching your parents struggle to keep the lights on or put food in the fridge, when those basic needs are threatened, you don't forget that, and you learn to have more empathy for anyone in situations where they're doing their best.
You came from a big family, right?
Big family.
Here in LA.
Here in LA, San Fernando Valley.
Okay.
I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and there's 6 of us in like 7 years, so we're just like bam, bam, bam.
Wow.
My parents are immigrants from Honduras. Different levels of college education in Honduras, both middle class in Honduras. And they came here, and my mom worked, you know, up to 3 jobs at a time, working, you know, at some points in a fast food restaurant, in hospitals, just getting whatever work she could. And my parents split up when I was around 9, and my father went back to Honduras. Okay. And so he wasn't really a part of my life from then on. And so we were raised by our single mom who worked her butt off and was determined to get all 6 of her children in college and out of college. And so for the majority of my life, she worked as the director of a housekeeping department at a Hilton hotel. All the women she worked with were also immigrant women, making ends meet and doing a really hard job. And that's the kind of climate we all grew up in. And me and all of my siblings, all of our first jobs were in the hotel. I was a waitress on the weekends. I did the 5 a.m. breakfast shift. She wanted us to have that experience, to know like how hard the work was. I remember so distinctly a moment when we were coming home from the grocery store. My mom, she'd just gotten her check. And I just remember like that trip to the grocery store was always about like making it last and making the check stretch as far as she could, because we knew it would be however many weeks to the next check and the next trip to the grocery store. And I remember driving home and finding the courage to ask her, like, are we poor? And
So you said, are we poor?
yeah. And she said to me, like, it just depends who you're asking. If you compare what we have to, say, you know, your cousins who live in a different zip code and go to private schools and, you know, then maybe. But if you ask the women I work with on a daily basis who make minimum wage for backbreaking work and are struggling, then there's a lot we have, and we're rich in so many other ways. And I mean, I was so young, but I remember that was the first sort of conversation about perspective that I'd ever been given. That really trained me to see people. And so when I came to college, I'd already had the incredible opportunity and fortune to act in Real Women Have Curves, which was my first feature film.
Such a good movie.
At 17, which was
And you got
amazing.
a lot of attention for that movie.
Yeah, it was a whirlwind. Premiering Real Women Have Curves at the Sundance Film Festival, winning an award, a special jury award for acting. Like, I didn't even know what Sundance was. I had never seen myself on a screen.
Yeah.
But I was headed to college, so it was like, great, this is all wonderful, but like, I'm going to school, you know? And so that's what I did. I came to school.
Should we go into your dorm room and surprise somebody?
I can't even remember which floor it was.
Let's
Do you want to go
look
see?
at your dorm.
Let's
Yes,
go. I'll
let's
show
walk
you.
down memory lane.
I'm gonna drive you.
You're gonna drive? Okay,
Yes.
good. Well, that's probably good because I don't know where I'm going.
I bet on is the right, the right function.
Now
Okay,
I have
let's see.
These heels are not doing you any favors.
Hold on, here we go. I'm gonna try not to take down any students on bikes. You're welcome.
Don't take down any co-eds.
Yeah.
Oh my God, America, I used to ride a bike around my college campus and I got in the worst bike accident ever.
No.
Dolly just bit it in front of everybody. Was so embarrassed.
I feel like that's a part of college life.
It's so hard that first year. It's so terrifying.
It is terrifying. And my first year was really, really lonely and sad. I had taken the first semester off because I was promoting Real Women Have Curves.
Okay.
I was like not fully just in school and I wasn't fully just in my career. I just felt sort of like in between and isolated.
No.
And I was learning a lot of really hard stuff. I was studying international relations. And, you know, when they talked about the Rwandan genocide and I didn't know what the heck anybody was talking about, I was like, I don't know anything. And I'm never gonna know enough. And I'm never gonna catch up. And halfway through my first semester, I was convinced that I had to quit being an actress and that I had to decide to do something serious and real and productive and giving back in my life. And I just was so convinced that that's what I had to do. Not what I wanted to do, but what I had to do. This is my first dorm.
Party?
Pardee Tower, not Party Tower.
Hold on.
Pardee Tower.
Party tower.
I know. Trust me, it was not Party Tower.
It wasn't?
It was not. So here, wait, should I park this thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Park. Yeah.
So, yeah, so this was where I came that first semester. And
this is amazing.
And what I was saying was that, you know, I was struggling that first semester with feeling lonely and isolated. And then what happened was my professor, his name was Professor Andrus, I went into his office sobbing, saying I'm going to quit acting and just study and focus on this and go be a lawyer or something that gives back to the world. I thought he would be thrilled. But he said, you know, I mentor this Latina girl, and I've never really been able to break through her shell. I've never really been able to earn her trust. And then one day she comes to me and says, Mr. Andrus, do you really want to understand my life? And he was like, yes. And she said, then come watch this movie with me. It's called Real Women Have Curves. Again, had no idea that he even knew I was an actress. And his mentee said to him, you come here and you talk to me about what I need to do to get into college, and you don't understand that I walked through my own home, the door through my own home, and my parents don't understand why this matters so much to me. And so he bought the DVD of Real Women, took it to her parents. They watched the movie, they talked about the movie, and then ultimately they supported her decision to go to college. Wow. And, you know, at this point I'm sobbing. And, you know, and he looks at me and he says, you know, I tell you this because this movie you did, this character you played, gave her that, gave her something to believe in, and gave her a representation and a reflection of her own life. And it helped her parents see something that they had never seen. And it changed the course of her life. He just gave me the permission to be all of the things that I am.
I wish I had this America when I was 19 years old. This is what I would have needed. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Like, growing up, what was your idea of a Latina woman on film as a little girl?
I mean, non-existent. I remember watching Stand and Deliver. I just remember being so addicted to that movie and watching that movie over and over and over again, because it was one of the first times that I ever saw people who looked like me.
Right.
But they're few and far between. They're few and far between, which is
not acceptable.
Why isn't there room for more than one Latina actress on television at the same time? Why isn't there room for more, women, female directors?
I do think the public has become more aware of not seeing themselves and not being represented.
Right.
And they're the paying customers.
Right. But it's not easy when the people in positions of power genuinely don't understand why it matters that people see themselves. And that we see ourselves and recognize ourselves. Not just, oh, there's more women. It's like, well, what are those women doing? And what are those women saying? And what are those women wearing?
Yeah.
And
what are their jobs?
And what are their relationships
Are they moms?
to
Are they
one
not
another?
moms? Yeah. Do they like each other?
Are they competing? Are they catty? Are they? And it's not to say that there's only one version that's right, but we've been pigeonholed for so long into these stereotypes, and that's what we have to battle every day.
Oh, sure. But it helps to have camaraderie, because you don't feel so isolated and alone.
My whole career, I'd really only ever been sent out on roles that were written for Latina women. People didn't read a script that said, young woman, 20-something, and think, oh, anyone could play this. That was the box that I lived in for a lot of my career, and still do to some extent. And when I got the script for Superstore, the role of Amy didn't have an ethnicity attached to it. I think that was the first time I was ever offered a television role that wasn't specified Latino, ever. So we're headed to see some young people who participate in the Neighborhood Academic Initiative, which is a program that I worked for. I was a tutor. I remember there was a semester where I couldn't buy my books because I didn't have $50 to buy a book I needed. And I was like, I need to get a job.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
We have special visitors today.
Hello.
Marvin.
Marvin,
Nice to
you're
meet
the
you.
tutor?
Yeah, I run the after-school tutoring here with NI. Nice to
Are
meet
you
you.
a USC student?
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
currently
cool.
a USC student as well. But at the time, once I'm out of class, I come here and tutor, which is really great,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
Beginning, I was taking math class for fun, and it's great to help out the community, really.
Yeah.
Wait, math for fun?
Yeah. Sounds weird, but
How many people here would take math for fun in college? Oh, what?
Yeah, we got one.
That's good. I'm so impressed.
Does anybody have questions for us? I mean, you could ask us almost anything.
What are your passions? Where do you want to go to school?
I want to become a lawyer, specifically entertainment law.
Oh, great.
You guys both come from familiar backgrounds as us, and you guys are both women in power, I believe. What is your advice to us as seniors about to go to college?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I think, it's important to find your passion. You don't have to be just one thing in life, right?
Yeah.
You can be a lot of different things. And I was an actor for a long time, and then I decided I want to be a producer. And I was like, okay, well, how do I do that? Nobody had shown me how to do that. I didn't grow up in the movie business. So I was like, well, maybe I should just try, And working hard is really the key to everything. I always know, I can always bet on myself, and I always know no one will work harder than me. So I always keep that in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another part of that, especially for kids like us who come from the communities we come from, where so much is at stake all the time, right? Like someone's working really hard to pay for your college tuition, and your parents worked really hard or gave up so much so that you could be in this position. Maybe you're the first person in your family to go to college or even dream of going to college. And so that can put a lot of weight on our shoulders, right? If I fail, if I mess up, then I'm disappointing a lot of people. But the thing I had to realize when I was in college was that it had to be okay to fail sometimes. Knowing that no one succeeds without having failures along the way was one of the most important lessons I ever learned in my life.
I really love watching Legally Blonde, and I remember you were fighting for your dog's mother because they were doing lab tests.
Yes.
So, what characteristics do you have to be a great activist?
Oh my gosh. I think you should talk to America, who inspires me. I learned so much from America's leadership because she studied it for a long time here at USC. You said something about how kids are really inspiring you.
Totally. Young people don't sit around thinking about what's not possible. They think about what is possible, and they imagine that anything is possible. And the number one thing that it takes to take action is courage. You have to be the one to say, my voice matters, my experiences matter. I'm gonna find the courage to use my voice, even if my voice shakes the whole time. I'm gonna stand up and use it anyway. Thanks, guys.
It's so important that young people see, graduates of their institutions standing up for rights, and you've done so much to raise awareness about DACA and the Dreamers.
When it comes to the Dreamers, or even the young people organizing around TPS, temporary protective status, they led their movement. They started their movement. They led their movement. It was young, undocumented kids who took to the streets and stood up and said, I am undocumented and unafraid.
Right, it's
and that,
incredible.
They
Wow.
didn't sit around waiting for some big, iconic leader figure to come show them the way. They just started organizing and using their voices. They're the ones who are so close to the obstacles. They're so close to the challenges. But they're also the ones who are the closest to the solutions because their imaginations and their problem solving isn't hindered by,
Old ideas.
Or, what we've been so trained to think,
Normalized.
that can't happen,
Right.
or things never change, or,
for sure.
Some of what keeps me up at night is just thinking about, what are the questions we're not asking yet? What are the ways that we have not tried yet to understand one another? I think it really is, at the end of the day, about relationships, and it's about patience, and it's about listening.
I've had such a nice time getting to know you through working on Time's Up. What was it that inspired you to get to sort of go, oh, no, this is my calling. I'm supposed to be one of the people here helping with this?
That question is never answered, right? You show up, you put yourself in the room, you have the conversations, and you're constantly asking, am I the right person to be in this room? But I think one of the things we're realizing with our work at Time's Up is that everybody has their own power and their own, we like to call it our own superpowers, right? And figuring out what's your unique power and what's the unique access or opportunity that each one of us has to add to the collective voice or the collective, hope for the future we want to see.
Do you think it's hard for women to sometimes step up and think, no, I'm going to be a leader? Because I think sometimes there's a part innate in women that's like, no, not me, her. And I feel that way all the time. Totally. I never want to power grab or anything like that. I do better as a collective of women. It's my nature. But I think it's been, a really interesting time where women have had to step up. Mm-hmm. And I got tapped on the knee by one of our friends who said, guess what? That part where you don't want to be a leader, that doesn't work anymore.
We are so much more likely to think of the reasons why we're not right for the job. Yes, but I didn't really go to a fancy enough school, or my education isn't good enough,
or I've never led anything,
or I'm too educated, or whatever the excuses are that keep us from being able to raise our hand and say, I'm gonna lead. I'm gonna lead. I'm gonna lead because that's what this moment calls for, because someone has to lead.
Someone has to.
And that's hard, but certain things wake us up.
Yeah.
And then I think the challenge is, how do we stay awake?
We have our sisters to remind us.
Yes, we have our sisters.
Whenever I feel like putting things down, I call you. And I go, okay, inspire me.
I know.
And you
I know.
do.
Well, I think we inspire
Makes
each
me wanna
other.
cry.
Like that partnership, that community, that friendship, that sisterhood is what keeps us going.
Yeah.
People like to talk about it as like, is this struggle for justice a sprint or a marathon? And Kamala Harris loves to make it more dimensional and say it's a relay race. When you have the baton and you have the energy and the power and the wherewithal to run, you run with all your might.
I love
and then
that.
you give the baton to someone else so that you
Right.
get to rest and restore and be around for the
I love
next
that, yes.
day. Because people go back to sleep when they burn out,
Yeah.
when they feel hopeless and helpless. And if we try to go at things alone and we try to fix everything by ourselves, that's when it starts to feel helpless. But when
Right.
we build community around us, then we have like these insurance policies.
Love you, America.
Oh, I love you.